The morning of the funeral was strangely bright. In Japan, I was used to funerals held under gray skies or soft rain. As if the weather itself understood our grief. But here in California, the sun blazed in a clear blue sky, casting sharp shadows across the church parking lot. Edward stood at the entrance, greeting everyone. He wasn't wearing the traditional black suit I would have expected back home, but a dark navy jacket with a crisp white shirt, no tie. His eyes looked tired, the skin beneath them shadowed. But his back was straight. "Yumi," he said when I approached, his voice low, almost careful. "Thank you for coming." I touched his arm gently. "Of course, Edward. Martha was my friend. I wouldn't be anywhere else." Inside the church, the air smelled faintly of lilies and old wood. There was no incense, no monks chanting sutras, just the soft hum of an organ and a slideshow of photos projected on a screen. Martha in her garden. Martha at the beach. Martha holding a glass of wine, laughing at something out of frame. People spoke in turns, sharing memories. Some were touching, some funny. When it was Edward's turn, he cleared his throat and said simply, "She was my best friend." Then he sat down. It was so restrained. In Japan, we might have seen open weeping, bowed heads, the quiet shuffle of tissues. But here, people hugged, smiled through tears, and told stories over coffee in the church hall afterward. As I watched Edward moving among the guests, shaking hands, even laughing at a joke or two, I thought he's holding it together better than most. What I didn't know then was that this calm composure would be the start of something unexpected. Something I would never have imagined. If I'd only known the Japanese way of mourning. The weeks after the funeral felt oddly still. In Japan, a widower might retreat from social life for months, even years. Neighbors would bring food, relatives would visit. But the tone would be hushed, the days slow and heavy. Here, Edward's house remained a place of movement. Neighbors dropped by with casseroles, bread, and wine. Friends invited him to join their book club, to go fishing, even to help build a community garden. At first, he politely declined. I visited once a week. He would greet me at the door, wearing his old flannel shirt and jeans, the smell of fresh coffee drifting from the kitchen. The first few visits were quiet, just the sound of spoons against mugs, and the occasional clink of the sugar jar. "How are you holding up?" I asked one afternoon, watching him pour coffee into a mismatched cup. He shrugged. "I keep busy. Cleaning out closets. Going through her things." I hesitated. In Japan, it would be unthinkable to go through a late spouse's belongings. So soon? It's something families sometimes delay for years. But Edward spoke of it casually, as if it were part of his healing. "It's strange," he continued, leaning against the counter. "I thought this house would feel empty without her, but it doesn't. Not yet. I still hear her voice when I walk into the kitchen." His eyes softened for a moment, but then he smiled. "I also found 3 unopened bottles of wine in the pantry. You'll have to help me drink them sometime." That was Edward, already weaving threads of normalcy back into his life. By the 3rd week, I noticed changes. His lawn was neatly trimmed. He'd started jogging in the mornings. And one day, when I arrived, he was on the porch, talking and laughing with a woman I didn't recognize, a neighbor, I later learned, who had dropped by with homemade pie. In Japan, this might have caused whispers, even judgment. But here, no one seemed to think twice. In fact, a few of the neighbors teased him about being the most eligible man on the street. I began to wonder, was this resilience? Or something else entirely? It started with a flyer on Edward's doorstep. Community Garden Volunteer Day? Saturday, 9 a.m. They slipped it under the doormat. He said, holding the paper like a curious artifact. "Do you think they expect me to show up?" "Yes," I said, smiling. "And they expect you to bring your charm." He rolled his eyes, but on Saturday morning he was there, ball cap, sunscreen, and a grin that looked almost, dare I say, eager. The garden sat behind the library. A rectangle of raised beds and trellises, humming with bees and cheerful voices. Someone handed him a pair of gloves. Someone else pointed to a patch of stubborn weeds. "You must be Edward," a woman said, stepping into his shadow. She wore a sun hat and a t-shirt that read "Plant Kindness." "I'm Diane. I live across the street from you, 2 doors down." "Nice to meet you," he said, and for a moment I watched him hesitate, like A man testing a shallow pool with his toes. Then he smiled and stepped in. The morning passed in a rhythm of small talk, shared tools, and the occasional burst of laughter. I kept my distance, pulling weeds along the fence, letting him navigate his way through this new landscape of human connection. In Japan, a widower might be sheltered by relatives, buffered by a quiet respect for mourning. Here, I saw him buoyed instead, by neighbors, by sunlight, by the language of "you're welcome here." When the volunteer coordinator called for a lunch break, Diane waved us over to the picnic tables. "Sit with us," she said, and there were introductions all around: a retired teacher, a couple who ran the local bakery, a soft-spoken man who repaired bicycles in his garage. "We meet on Thursdays too," Diane said. "It's more casual, just watering and conversation." Edward looked at me. I nodded. "You should go," I said. He did. That Thursday, I found him on his porch with a watering can and a set of car keys. He kept moving from one pocket to another. "I keep thinking I'm forgetting something," he said, laughing at himself. "Like I should bring a casserole to prove I belong." "In California," I said, "your smile is the casserole." He laughed, then sobered. "I used to be the man who stayed home and read, while Martha did the talking," he said. "It scares me how easily people see me now. As if I'm available." I heard the unspoken word single. "Being seen can be a kindness," I said softly. "And a responsibility." He tucked the keys away. "Come with me? I'll walk you to the corner," I said. "You can do the rest." At the garden, the Thursday crew was smaller, the talk looser. Someone had brought lemonade. Diane was showing a teenager how to tie tomato vines to the trellis. When she saw Edward, her face brightened in that open American way that always catches me off guard. So little ambiguity. So little need to hide goodwill behind modesty. "You came," she said, then handed him a coil of twine. "Can you help me with these vines? They're ambitious." Over the next hour, I watched a tone settle between them, friendly, curious, edged with something gently flirtatious. Not romance, not yet, but the roominess of possibility. Later, as we walked home, he said, "I forgot how much I like learning names." "You didn't forget," I said. "You just hadn't needed to remember." Invitations multiplied after that. The bakery owners hosted a Sunday coffee tasting and pressed a mug into his hands the moment we walked in. The retired teacher ran a book club and insisted he join because we're discussing a man called Ove. "And you, sir, have opinions whether you know it or not." The bicycle repairman, whose name turned out to be Carlos, convinced Edward to bring in his dusty old Schwinn. "I'll tune it up for you," he said. "No charge. Just promise me you'll ride it." "He's recruiting me into a gang," Edward told me on the way home, deadpan. "A gang of people who wake up early and do wholesome things." "Be careful," I said. "That's the most dangerous kind." Summer slipped in cleanly, with long evenings that tasted like peach and mint. We began walking after dinner, down to the beach, along the path that followed the bluff. Sometimes he talked about Martha, about the projects they had never finished, about the small domestic habits that still caught him off guard. "I keep setting 2 plates," he said once. "It's muscle memory. Keep setting them," I said. "You'll know when to stop." Not all new faces were gentle. At a neighborhood potluck, a woman named Valerie approached with the precision of a guided missile. She wore silver earrings and a scent that reminded me of jasmine. "At night? Sweet, almost dangerous?" "Edward," she said, extending a hand. "We've been praying for you at church. If you ever want to come by, we have a widowers group that meets on Tuesdays." "Thank you," he said. "And if you prefer something less formal," she added, "I do an informal dinner on Fridays. Friends only." Very relaxed. Her smile was dazzling. Her eyes said, "I noticed you." Later, washing dishes side by side in the host's kitchen, he said, "That was a lot." It was, I agreed. California has many languages. That one was fluent in invitations. He chuckled. "Do you think I should go?" I considered. In Japan, there might be whispers about speed, about propriety, about the correct length of shadow grief should cast. Here, the question felt different. Not is it allowed, but is it kind? To yourself, to others? "Go if you want to meet people," I said. "Don't go if you think you'll be auditioning." He nodded slowly. "I'm not ready to audition." "Then go to the garden," I said. "Plants don't ask for monologues." A week later, he rode past my house on the newly tuned Schwinn. A bell chiming as he waved. Carlos is a miracle worker. He called out, "Helmut." I shouted back, and he saluted like a boy who had forgotten. He used to be one. New faces and invitations kept reshaping his days. But I noticed the shape he preferred: small circles, simple tasks, the steadiness of showing up. If grief had been a heavy coat, he wasn't shrugging it off, he was learning to move in it, to feel its weight.